As a student of tax law, we were taught that tax evasion is a criminal act, while tax avoidance is not. And I wonder, why avoid tax? Why do you not want to support a nation which has provided you with an identity?
The role of taxation in nation building is fundamental, and as such, the judiciary, the tax authorities must work together to secure the enforcement of tax laws.
In the last 2-3 episodes of Tax Matters, we have been looking at the 3 tripods on which the pot of taxation rests: tax policy, tax laws, tax administration. In every endeavor of life and community relations, laws are made to regulate activities. That is the remit of the legislature. But laws can only be obeyed if there are enforcement mechanisms built into the laws. That is the remit of the judiciary. So how are tax laws enforced? In jurisprudence, it is agreed that there are special aspects of law. That is the origin of the practice whereby special courts are established at local, national, and international levels, like the National Industrial Court for Labor Matters, the Tax Appeal Tribunal for Tax Matters, the Revenue Courts for Economic Matters, the International Criminal Court in The Hague for the prosecution of persons accused of war crimes. In cases where special courts don't exist for a particular area, then the regular court is brought to speed on developments in that area of activity by training and retraining. The National Judicial Institute has been busy lately. In pursuance of its statutory role of training and retraining, the Institute recently organized 2 training sessions for justices of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal, as well as judges of the Federal High Court and the National Industrial Court. One was in conjunction with the Federal Inland Revenue Service, while the other was in conjunction with the Central Bank of Nigeria. Our focus is on the one organized in conjunction with the FIRS. It was held in 2 separate sessions, the first being the session for justices of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal, which was held on Thursday the 30th of September. The second, which was held on Monday the 4th of October, was for judges of the Federal High Court and the National Industrial Courts. We will be sharing with you highlights of the session held for justices of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal.
Distinguished participants, the judiciary had been undaunted with the myriad of cases and disputes relating to tax matters, such as tax evasion, tax avoidance, and many other related matters. As such, the objective of this interactive session, among others, is to draw the attention to some of these problems, discuss how we can effectively deal with them, and perhaps offer suggestions as how to avoid them in the future.
The session had in attendance justices of the Supreme Court, led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, and justices of the Court of Appeal, led by Honorable Justice Monica Domba Mensem. Also in attendance was the Administrator of the National Judicial Institute, Honorable Justice Salisu Garba Abdullahi, as well as members of the Board of FRS, led by the Executive Chairman FRS, Mr. Muhammad Nami. The recent release of the Pandora Papers, of course preceded by Panama and the Paradise Papers, has made it imperative that judicial officers are constantly trained and retrained to read between the lines and detect tax evasion and tax avoidance antics of tax dodgers. Professor Asada Dominic presented a paper on dealing with tax evasion and tax avoidance in Nigeria, while Mr. Chinua Asuzo presented a paper on interpretation of tax statutes. The session was presided over by Honorable Justice Mary Peter Odoli, Justice of the Supreme Court.
In Greenberg, a UK case, Lord Reed said, plain words are seldom adequate to anticipate and forestall the multiplicity of ingenious schemes constantly being devised to avoid taxation. So courts shouldn't resort to plain words in a hurry. Although courts might not wage war against tax avoidance at large, the way FIRS may do, but they should deal with the individual specific tax cases that come before them. Now, that involves striking a careful balance between the limited right of the taxpayer to minimize his tax legally and the duty of the state to collect as much as possible. I won't go into the canons of such interpretation, but I would like your indulgence to look at two of them: mischief rule and purposive application. The mischief rule is simple. Look for what was the mischief the statute was meant to solve. In most cases, in the tax industry, it's tax avoidance that we want to minimize. Because they're always devising new ones, the legislator wants to limit the window for them achieving that avoidance. Therefore, the court should interpret to prevent that mischief from taking place. And the mischief is tax avoidance. So there's no reason to interpret in favor of the taxpayer. That dictum, that maxim, that idea of doubt in favor of the taxpayer is a mistake. We just assume that it should be so. It don't have to be so. Lately, in the last few years, in Canada, they devised what they call TCP, textual, contextual, and purposive approach, TCP. The entire statute is to raise money, raise revenue from a certain new transaction, maybe solid minerals. How can a portion of it be contrary to that aim? Therefore, you have to marry a harmonious interpretation that achieves statutory purpose. If in doubt, use TCP. If you detect or suspect avoidance, use mischief rule. 3, presume that the clause was enacted to bring in tax revenue, not lose it. That's a reasonable presumption. The government cannot make law to lose revenue. They make law to gain revenue. The judiciary should remember that it's a branch of government, not a branch of government.
Professor Sada touched on some of the antics of business owners, especially with regards to trusts and foundations.
There are two ways of financing the economy. It's either you finance it in equity or in debt finance. Debt finance is a situation where a multinational advances loan facilities to the subsidiary because of the fact that the interest accruable is tax exempt. Sometimes a company may make a profit, huge profit, but instead of distributing the income so that the beneficiary will be subject to tax, that profit will be recapitalized, thereby avoiding the time that is supposed to be paid there. Of course, people can set up foundation trusts in a manner that taxes are concealed. We have seen the case of the Panama Papers, where offshore foundations were set up for the purpose of using those foundations for illicit financial flow and tax avoidance purposes. Then we also have the concept of round tripping, where profit is shifted to where a multinational entity find a way to shift profit from the subsidiary to outside the country, and the money is also used to invest again in one way or the other.
What is the way out?
Nigeria needs thick capitalization rules. Other countries have followed suit and they have designed rules to ensure that thick capitalization is minimized to the barest minimum. Nigeria also need to come into effect digital rules. Come out with a very firm law about taxation of digital economy.
After the presentation of the two papers, the floor was thrown open for questions, observations, and comments. Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, a tax consultant, presented a paper on enhancing revenue through effective taxation of foreign workers within Nigeria's territorial waters, the Personal Income Tax Amendment Act 2011, and matters arising.
It has been established that all over the world there's a high correlation between level of tax compliance and the level of governance that you find. So it's not oil money that will make us do the right thing, it is when we start doing the right thing with taxation. So when you make individuals pay their personal income tax, it is personal to them and they take it seriously. When they see on the pages of newspaper that billions have been stolen away, they don't move on easily like that. The greater revolutions in the history of mankind have been triggered by taxation. From the French Revolution to the American Revolution, and it was the beginning of development. Otherwise, maybe America would not be what it is today if not for taxation.
The rave of the moment, the digital economy and the taxation of that economy was the focus of the last paper.
I will start by talking about how tax is practiced, and starting from Section 9 of the Companies Income Tax Act. Section 9 of the Company Income Tax Act says that the profit that is taxable in Nigeria is the profits derived from, accrued in, received in, and brought into Nigeria. So if you look at those four words, it does not say who has brought it in, who has received it, or who has to who it has accrued, as long as that profit is accruing in Nigeria, as long as that profit is derived from Nigeria, then it is taxable in Nigeria. If you also now go further to Section 13, Section 13.1 talks about Nigerian company. It says Nigerian company is taxable on all income, wherever that income is made. So if a Nigerian company has made some income from Ghana, as long as it's a Nigerian company, that income is liable to tax in Nigeria. Under the Personal Income Tax Act, the same wording, if you are a Nigerian resident and you have derived income anywhere in the world, it is also taxable in Nigeria. So prior to now, under the traditional business, we have situation where before an income is taxable in Nigeria, there is need or there is requirement for physical presence before the amendment that happened in 2019. So what brought about the amendment? It is the situation of how businesses are done in the world now. Under the digital economy, what do we have? What we have now is, instead of the goods transported to a warehouse, and from warehouse it moved to shopping mall for people to go there and buy, what we have now is that people sit in their different closets and log on to their app or their phone, their computers, still seated in Nigeria, and they order for goods directly from the factory or from a warehouse that is also situated in UK. So the goods come to our different houses. So if you go back and look at the digital economy, the traditional economy I spoke about earlier, we see that the warehouse that is in Nigeria is taxable, the shopping mall is taxable in Nigeria. But what we have now is that those two elements have been eliminated. So we don't have the presence to subject that business to taxation in Nigeria. So that is the challenge of digital economy. And if you look at not only company income tax element, if you also look at the VAT element, prior to now, if those goods are coming, they will likely come in bulk. So they will come through the borders, and when they come, custom charge duty. And as they are charging duty, they also apply VAT. The goods come and we collect the VAT and all the duties and taxes. However, now, when the goods come, most times, one by one, they are mostly called low-value goods. Because by the time I log on to my app and I order for shoe, most likely it will come as low-value good. Custom look as, oh, this is just 20,000 or 30,000. I can't waste my time chasing VAT on 20,000 naira. So most times, those goods come and they are not taxed. So it is not just the income that has been lost from the warehouse, the example we were looking at, from the warehouse and the shopping mall. We're also talking about the VAT, value-added tax, that has also been lost, that's likely to be lost as a result of that change in the business model.
I'm a very busy man. My business involves a lot of traveling and I interface with lots and lots of people and organizations. Tax compliance used to be a big drag on my business. It was time-consuming and very costly. But now, no more. Introducing the FIRS Tax Pro Max, the truly fully end-to-end tax administration solution for companies' income tax, value-added tax, petroleum profits tax, and all other tax types. For fast, efficient, and convenient end-to-end tax experience, log on to www.taxpromax.firs.gov.ng. Tax Promax has turned things around for me. It is fast, user-friendly, and cost-effective. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC.
Earlier at the opening ceremony, in his welcome address, the Executive Chairman FIRS spoke on the role of the judiciary in interpreting laws and administering justice.
The role of the judiciary has become all important given the enormous challenges confronting tax administration owing to the dynamic economic, business, and social environment of the 21st century. Some of the issues confronting administration of justice in tax cases include, but are not limited necessarily to, outdated laws. The business environment continues to evolve. Changes are occurring at a very alarming rate and speed. The legislative process is constantly finding it difficult to keep with the rate and speed of change, thereby causing lacunas in the laws, which enables taxpayers to get away with unwholesome practices. 2, technicalities of the emerging tax rules. The boom in technological advancement has enhanced cross-border transactions and significantly altered the way business is done globally. In our view, the continuation and regularity of this type of engagement is one sure way of building the necessary collaboration.
Justice Salisu Gabra Abdullahi is the administrator of the National Judicial Institute.
This interactive conference is expected to examine several topics on the judiciary's approach to statutory interpretation and the enforcement of tax legislation in Nigeria.
On her own part, President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Monica Domba Mensem, drew a nexus between tax payments and good governance.
We ought to proudly pay our tax, and then we can demand of the government that which our right is as diligent taxpayers.
On the growing phenomenon of globalization and digitalization.
Without formal means of identity or physical structures, many internet entrepreneurs make hundreds of thousands and even millions of naira daily, monthly or annually, without paying tax. The challenge is how to tax such persons and ensure that they are captured in our database. Similarly, the global trade environment has evolved into a more centralized, standardized system of trade. This is reflected in the recent passage of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has had a concomitant effect on cross-border transactions. More than this, it is throwing up challenges to taxation and revenue collection across the continent. Where a company based in Namibia reaps a handsome profit from the Nigerian market, which country taxes that entity? There is no doubt that taxation has become more complex and topical. I applaud the idea to have this interactive session with the courts, who have to interpret and give guidance to the operation of our laws. I fully expect that this event will be more than mere talk. I believe strongly that taxation should take advantage of information and communications technology, as ICT, and other technological advancements to ensure the effective collection of tax for the quick development and transformation of our great nation, Nigeria. There is also a need for the courts and the government to synergize to enforce our laws more effectively and prevent revenue leakage outside the country. Two areas where such leakages have occasioned are the informal sector and the digital economies, respectively.
The head of the Nigerian judiciary, Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, delivered the keynote address.
This forum is convened in furtherance of the statutory mandate of the National Judicial Institute as enshrined in Section 3, Subsection 2 of the NJI Act, which makes provisions for the Institute to serve the principal focal points of judicial activities relating to the promotion of efficiency and improvement in the quality of justice delivery. The Institute is further conferred the responsibility of conducting and facilitating workshops, seminars, as well as conferences for judicial officers with the view to expanding and improving their overall knowledge and performance. Hence, this collaborative engagement with FIRS. The role of taxation in nation building is fundamental, and as such, the judiciary, the tax authorities must work together to secure the enforcement of tax laws.
We join our voices to that of the Chief Justice in commending the organizers of the Interactive Training Conference. We pray and hope that this, along with other things, will go in no small way in accelerating the dispensation of justice to both sides of the divide, the taxpayer and the tax collector, because as they say, justice delayed is justice denied. And in that regard, we leave you with the words of Mr. Taiwo Oyedele.
Sometimes, some of us in the private sector with our limited knowledge of how the court system works, we complain that things take too long. I wish that we can have cases go through the court system from the beginning to the end in less than 6 months, not 6 years, because this is not good for business and for the economy. Being able to enforce contracts, resolve disputes is one of the indicators of the ease of doing business. And I do think that if the court understands some of these issues a little bit more, then we can go through that process in a shorter time than we do now. Of course, being mindful that there are other issues, why those things take time.
Thank you for watching. Obey the law, pay your taxes as and when due, and we will all be better for it. See you next week.